Hello everybody, welcome back to the Advanced Vape channel. Today we're going to be taking a look at the Voltrove V2 Mini. It's sort of the second version of the Modfather. It's made, designed by the same people and made by Voltrove. It's a 30mm tank. That's what they call Mini because the regular Voltrove V2 is 41mm. So 30mm, and to me it's intended to be the successor to the Modfather. That's kind of how I see it. So here it is right here. I have the short glass kit on it. It comes with both, and I'll show you. This is the normal sized, so you can kind of compare. But I like the shorty kit on the Modfather, so that's the one that I have on here. There's been a few changes between this and the original Modfather. Probably the biggest change is juice flow control. It has introduced juice flow control that is pretty much identical to how the Aromizer Plus is. It works the same way, it kind of looks the same way. Just rotate that, and that's locked all the way, and that's open all the way. It also has a little bit more options as far as airflow. So this is wide open on the larger of the sections, and it also has a smaller section. And I'm going to talk a little bit about this airflow because it kind of changes the character of the tank quite a bit. It has normal top fill. It has normal top fill. Pretty much the same as the Modfather. And the deck is velocity, although these wicking ports, if you remember how the Modfather looks, they're absolutely enormous. So basically the entire bottom is just open. I'm not sure if they're planning on making new decks for this. This is the only one that I saw, and of course this is the one that it comes with, is the Velocity, which is the same for the Modfather, and they came out with the Postless in the series decks later. All of the threads and everything on this are super high quality. They feel super smooth, no complaints as far as that's concerned. So I'm going to go on and throw a build on here really quick, and then we'll talk about wicking and stuff after we go through the dry fire. Okay, so I've got the coils installed in here. This is some alien frame staples with 5 wraps on a 3mm. You could probably go a little bit more on the diameter if you wanted, but I'm just used to using 3mm. I think 3.5 might be a little bit easier when it comes to wicking. This is just what I'm used to, so that's what I do. As you can see, my coils are up super high. Normally in a velocity deck, they just kind of, by default, go right in the middle there. They about where the bottom of these coils are would be where the top is. You know, maybe a little bit different, but these are up super high. And that's because of kind of the positioning on this airflow. So if I put it on there, got it locked in there. I'll try and shine a light in the back so that you can see where the coils are positioned. They are kind of right where there's not airflow shooting over the top of them. So on my very first build on here, I had them in kind of the default position, and they were way low, so the airflow just shot right over the top of the coil. And normally with direct air kind of stuff, you want to try and get it hitting the bottom half of the coil. That's not really possible on this. It's kind of hitting it dead on. But with the coils so low down on there, one, it made it hard to wick, and two, the flavor was diminished just because the air was shooting over top of the coil. So this is kind of a better setup from my experience using it. So I'll go on and go through the dry fire, and then we'll talk about wicking. Alright, so wicking on this, I expected it to be a little bit easier because of the juice flow control. I thought that would give you a little bit more flexibility as far as how you wick it, but in practice that hasn't really been the case. This is just as finicky to wick as the original Modfather, if not a little bit more so. I've had quite a bit of trouble getting this wick just how I like it, so I want it to wick really quickly, but obviously not leak. The potential for leaking was one of the biggest problems with the original Modfather. If you've watched my channel at all, you know that that's one of my favorite tanks ever, but just being honest, that was a serious problem. A lot of people just couldn't get it to work how they wanted it to. So I'm going to be using cotton bacon prime on this. Alright, so I normally cut it down pretty low, so almost at the base of the mod, so quite a bit. About there. And then I'm going to brush it out just a little bit. So there's two different ways that you could go from here. You can kind of put each individual leg stuff down in those holes, or you can do it how I did it with the Modfather, having it laid up like that. And that's the way that I'm going to do it. I think if you use a larger diameter coil, you can get by with a little bit shorter wicks. I know that these are really long. So what I'm going to do is basically stuff them down in those holes, but it's not going to stay like that. Now, as you can see, these holes are really packed in there. And you can hold it up to the light and kind of look through it and see if there's any big gaps. So what I'm going to do now that there's juice on there is just kind of lightly pick it up and set it back down. So what that's doing is kind of unseating it from being stuffed in there and just putting it down on top of there so that it's not crammed in there, but it's still blocking the hole. This may be just a little bit heavier than I normally wick it, but it should still work. Make sure that it locks into that little pin there to make sure that the airflows are lined up. Juice kind of shows up on this finish really easily. Even if you wipe it off, it kind of leaves these little marks, if you can see. That's just kind of the nature of the finish, and it's the exact same finish that I have on this mod, and it has the same problem. So I have the juice flow all the way closed. You have to keep in mind that when I open the juice flow, it's going to fall down in there. So that's why this is filling it, not a whole lot. It's not all the way full. Then open the juice flow. So right now the juice is falling all the way down and back up inside there because of the juice flow is open. Okay, so I'm going to be vaping this at 125 watts. I'll go on and give it a try with the air all the way open. Sometimes it's kind of hard to see to what degree it's open, so I kind of have to move it back and forth to see that it's open all the way there. Alright, let's give it a try. It's really good flavor with the airflow all the way open. The flavor is very much like it is on the Modfather. Kind of that really saturated sort of vape. It's a ton of air though. Having this all the way open feels like way more air than the original Modfather. And I think that's to accommodate bigger builds. The build deck on here, to me, is a lot bigger than it was on the Modfather, so you can fit bigger builds in there, which need more power, so more air. It also has this smaller thing, and I'll try that in just a second, but closing down this airflow a little bit in either direction, I feel like I'm hitting only half of the coil because it's because of the way that it closes off. So it doesn't seem like it makes that big a difference. It's just sort of a I don't know, I would rather the airflow be designed a little bit different to make it feel like I'm hitting the whole coil, but I feel like that's kind of nitpicky. So we'll try it like this. This, having 3 open, is still bigger than the smaller one. Having 3 open is still really airy, and to me that's more air than most RTAs have all the way open. So I'll go on and switch over to the smaller one, and I normally just move that until it's right in the middle, like that. So it's got the 3 middle ones open, and it's shorter than this one, so having 3 open on this one is more air than these 3. It's kind of smaller in there. That's quite a bit less air than the other side. It feels warmer, obviously, because there's less air and I'm vaping in a high wattage, but the flavor is stronger on there. It's just finding a balance between the airflow and the flavor. So this has probably the best flavor, but there's less air, so you get less juice kind of hitting your tongue with that saturated style vape that I talked about. I like that it has the options between both of these. But when I was vaping it and testing it, sometimes it felt like it was either too much or too little. You can be vaping on this for a while, and then if you switch to the other one, it's like a massive difference in the way that it vapes. It feels totally different. No issues with the wicking. It seems like it's wicking perfectly right now. I closed it down just a little bit, not too much. It feels like it's fully saturating the cotton, but it's not going to leak. This is kind of right at the sweet spot, and for me, that's probably how I'm going to keep wicking this tank, is how I did in this video. That's sort of what I've found to be the most effective. I've tried quite a few different ways, including the exact same way that I did on the original Modfather, and it just was a little leaky and oversaturated. For me, the biggest issue with getting the best flavor out of this is the coil positioning. I'm not sure why they have it set up the way that they do, but if you put the coils in, like I was showing, if you put them in just kind of in the natural position for the velocity deck, it's way too low. The air shoots over top of it, and the flavor is really not very good. You feel like you're getting more air than anything else. And that sort of leads you to want to make it wick faster to try and boost the flavor up, and then you deal with leaking and stuff. So having those coils up way high, like I have in here, that's where it's at for me. That brings me that same experience that I got from the Modfather. Overall, I feel like it's the same experience of a vape. It's the same really saturated, dense kind of vape, but with juice flow control and more options on the airflow. That's where the biggest difference comes. They're around about the same price. I think I paid $70, something like that, for this, which is how much the Modfather was originally, somewhere around there. So it's on the expensive side for a tank. But on the whole, I really like it. If you like the Modfather, it's worth picking up. It's got the bigger deck in there. You've got more options, more airflow, juice flow control. So it's kind of a natural upgrade to the Modfather, and I think they did a good job keeping that same style and that same vape with the changes that they made. As long as you do the coil positioning, like I mentioned, that's the key to getting it to be like the Modfather. So on the whole, I really like it. I've had it in my rotation. I've been using it quite a bit. So that'll bring us to the end of this video about the Voltrove V2 Mini. If you like this video on our channel, give us a like and subscribe. And as always, if you have any questions, leave them below in the comments or send me an email. Thanks.